Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing. This is your host, Landon Oliver, here with my co-host, Andrew Scott. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man?
It's another lovely day and another lovely podcast for you guys. Of course, fantasy football related, like it has been the last few times, and we're really excited about this one. We're not doing Dynasty. We're not doing sleepers. We're not doing rankings, anything crazy like that. But we get to do one of our favorite things in the world, and that is mock draft.
Yeah, man, it doesn't get any better than this. And you kind of already touched on everything we've done leading up to this as far as redraft is concerned. We've hit sleepers, we've hit bust, we've planted our flag on guys. We've done, about everything there is to do in terms of discussing players that we like or don't like, other than just, letting it play out in front of us and practicing for the actual drafts themselves. And this is actually going to be my first redraft mock draft of the off season, so I'm really excited about this one. That I get to do it live on the air with you. I haven't done one of these yet this off season, so I'm ready, man.
I haven't either. Everything I've done has been pretty much dynasty related content, as far as drafting goes. But I have a surprise for you, special surprise for the viewers, especially if you're on YouTube. We have an extra drafter here with me right now.
What?
That's right. We have a special guest that's going to be drafting with us. That is my boy John Wayne here.
I thought you had Ray at your house or something.
I know. I was kind of trolling you. Emily brought that home like a week or so ago from work. Where she works at, they have all these celebrity standees, and they were getting rid of them. And she walked into the door. She was like, "I got this big ass John Wayne." She's like, "What do you want to do with it?" And I'm like, "What do I want to do with it?" I was like, "I think put it in here."
I know exactly what I'm doing with it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna draft with John Wayne, and we will see how it goes. Hopefully, he likes my picks because he has a gun.
Well, I guess before we start drafting, we should find out where you and John Wayne are going to be drafting from. And this is something we hadn't really touched on, but so this is going to be just your standard 12-team, half PPR draft, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, kicker, defense, 5 bench spots. Just about as standard as you can get in terms of a mock draft. But if you're doing mock drafts to get ready for the draft season and you don't know where you're going to be drafting from, I highly recommend doing it from several different spots and seeing what teams you end up with and things like that. Now, if you're a league where you do some type of funny, like you pick a horse in the Kentucky Derby and that's how you decide your draft order or something like that, and you do it early and you know where you're drafting from, obviously you don't have to do all that. But if you're not doing something like that, I highly recommend picking different spots. So we're just going to do this.
To me, and like, not only is this one of the most fun things to do, but this is one of the most beneficial for you to do.
Yeah.
When it comes to fantasy football, do as many mock drafts as you possibly can. I know last year I counted because I had all those rookie picks in the Dynasty League. I counted, I made a mark on a piece of paper every time I did a mock draft. From the end of the season until it was actually draft time, I did 243 mock drafts.
Jesus Christ.
It was literally, I mean, I was doing like 10 to 20 at like a day, like at one point. Especially as it got closer to it, because I'm sitting there with this much shit. And I went a little overboard with the mock drafts.
I probably last year was whenever we started our 32-team league, and I probably wasn't far behind you with that one, man. I did so many mock drafts with that 32-team dynasty startup because there's just so many different outcomes that came with that. Once you get
past like the 3rd round, you're just like,
this is disgusting.
Stare at it and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot with that too. So I feel what you're saying. But yeah, so we've got the 12 teams. So if you want to do it random, obviously you can just go in there and you can just pick one. But if you want to let somebody decide for you, I use draftordergenerator.com. You simply just put the number of teams in your league, type in your name. You can type in your other league mates if you want to. I just did Landon and myself, and then just some numbers.
Can we add John Wayne to my name? Slash.
Yeah.
John Wayne. Yeah. All right.
Why not?
Now we're in business.
All right. So let's see what we're doing here. All right. So I got 6 and you got 11. Okay.
Right.
So we got a little bit of spread out there. All right. So I'll claim 106 and then let you grab the 11 spot. All right. And then we'll be good to go.
And if you look at the logos on here, these are from our 32 team dynasty where we actually have team names on them. We have cities and teams. Mine, I have the Texas Rattlesnakes after Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And then I'm the St. Louis Murder Hornets. So
did you think about how crazy, like how quick Murder Hornets went away?
I know. It was a thing like for the day that I made that name, and then after that day, it wasn't a thing like anymore. Yeah, it was. That was kind of funny. Okay, so I'm on the clock at the 106. We had CMC, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara come off the board.
Which, that's about the order that I would have picked them in as well. So that's about as standard as it gets.
Yeah, I would agree. So that leaves me here in the guy that I was hoping would fall to me that I wanted here. I knew I wasn't going to get CMC or Dalvin Cook, and I don't really know how to feel about Derrick Henry, but Kamara was the guy that I was hoping I would get at 6. But I did have one other guy in mind if I didn't get Kamara, and that is Nick Chubb, running back from the Cleveland Browns, who would be the guy right behind them that I'm taking. Because I am still in running back territory for me. It has to get a little bit later in the first round to where there's a handful of running backs that I like where I want to leave with one of those stud running backs, and I do believe that Nick Chubb is one of those guys. So there was some consideration for your boy Jonathan Taylor there, but I think even with why am I going blank on his name? Even with Kareem Hunt there, I do still think that Nick Chubb is, the 1A on that offense that is just so incredibly good at running the ball. And he's just a really damn good running back, man. And I think he's almost kind of underappreciated. So, yeah.
I love Nick Chubb. So on the clock now, let's see. I have plenty of options here. Devontae Adams, last year's wide receiver 1, is still there. And pretty much indication. I mean, we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, but for Devontae Adams, we just had Tyreek Hill go. Aaron Jones, Eckler's there. DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, your boy Cam Akers is there as well. And look, I know we've talked about it on our previous 3 shows, the strategy. Wide receiver is just so deep. Running back, once you get past that, top pretty much like 12 running backs, it thins out very, very quickly. Now, there are some sleepers. There are some guys that you could get for value later on, but
right,
you don't want those guys to be your running back 1 going into the season. And a guy that I'm very high on as well, I know you obviously love him, who I'm going with here.
All right. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and as you see, 2 more running backs went after me. So Eckler and Jones went as well. And that leaves, I've still got Adams, Hopkins, Diggs. They're all still there. Metcalf, Mixon, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley. All these guys are still there. But I'm trusting my rankings. I'm trusting my eyes. I'm trusting what I've preached. I'm practicing what I've preached. And I'm starting my draft off with Akers and Antonio Gibson. I'm locking in the running back spot. I'm getting value at wide receiver and tight end later. Now if Kelsey was there, that's who I probably would have chosen. But
right,
with him gone, I'm just going to wait on tight end. So
yeah, with those guys coming off the board right there in the back of the first round, with the 4 running backs right there, Akers, Eckler, Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, that was kind of the end of the running backs that I would want to take before I start grabbing some of the high end receivers. Now there are, like, I would take Tyreek before a couple of those guys. And if the Rodgers situation gets cleared up prior to my draft, I would take Adams before some of those guys. But um, the running backs I'm willing to take this early are pretty much gone now. Where like I've had the mindset this year, just looking at, like you already touched on, how deep wide receiver is, that if the board falls the way that I would like it to where I would be able to take two running backs to start the draft, I would love for it to work out that way. But you got to let the board fall to you. And there's not guys that I want to take here in the second round over some of these receivers. That I can't take running back at this position and feel good about it, especially with this guy still on the board, who is one of my personal favorite receivers in the league, and somebody that I was really nervous about going into last year. I had him in our 12-team dynasty league. Whenever he got traded to the Buffalo Bills, I was like, oh shit, no way.
Josh
And,
Allen.
yeah, and then lo and behold, Josh Allen, it just has this incredible improvement, MVP level type shit that I definitely did not see coming, but was very thankful to see happen. Just so that Diggs's talent could really shine. And so if you haven't figured it out by now, that is the direction that I'll be going with my second round pick and grabbing Stephon Diggs here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't fault you, because that was kind of my thinkings why I grabbed those two running backs back to back, is because like I said, after Mixon was gone, I'm not even a huge Mixon fan, but pretty much after Gibson, that's where it kind of ends for me. Mixon, that's weird. Team 9, actually, in that 32 team dynasty league, I have Jonathan Taylor and Joe Mixon as my two running backs. So I'm well versed in that, with Joe Mixon, and of course last year how that ended up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, now you're getting in to, by the time the board would have came back around to me, you're looking at Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt, Gaskin, those type of guys, and I didn't want to take that chance.
So team 3 kind of broke my heart on this one. I guess I could break it down. So after I took Diggs in the second round, you had DK Metcalf, Najee Harris, Patrick Mahomes, the first quarterback in the second round. Don't do that.
No.
All right, don't do that. Patrick Mahomes is incredible.
Well, look, it depends. Okay.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't.
Not in the second round.
Well, but if your league, it's more justifiable if your league is 6-point passing touchdowns than if it's 4-point passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
4-point is generally what used to be standard. I don't know really. I think I don't know if 6-point standard now. I know in the other leagues that I've played in, 4 points per passing touchdown is what it usually is. But in our league, it's 6 points, where obviously quarterbacks are going to be a little bit more valuable in that league. And whenever you have a guy like Mahomes and it's 6-point passing touchdowns, that could very well lead to some huge weeks. So I can kind of get it, because he did actually get good value, which I'll let you talk about here in a second.
Yeah. So after Mahomes, DeAndre Swift and George Kittle rounded out the second round, and then to start the third round, when Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Darren Waller, and David Montgomery. And so where the heartbreak came for me here in the third round is my favorite third round target. Just looking at ADPs the last few weeks, and we've been doing the the sleepers and the busts and things like that. We've been doing is Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the third round. Is just, if he falls to me in the third round, that's a smash pick every single time. And whenever I realized I was going to be taking a receiver in the second round, that was the immediate thought that went to my head, was I want Clyde to follow me in the third round. I think he's a perfect example of somebody that's going, one of like I don't want to call him a sleeper because he's going to the third round, but a post-hype sleeper type of thing, where there, the rookie hype was huge last year once he landed in Kansas City. And he did perform well. But the injuries and then some bad luck on touchdowns and things like that kind of capped what his ceiling could have been. And I don't think he has any business being in the third round. I think he should be in the second round. I would take him over Najee Harris. I would take him over DeAndre Swift, a couple of guys that went in the second round.
Yeah.
But didn't make it to me in the third. So now I'm tilting a little bit, and it's disappointing. Look, if I'm being completely honest, Michael Thomas probably should be the pick here. I think he's being slept on a lot. Um, and regardless of who's quarterback, I don't think it matters. I think the quarterback should be Jameis, and I think if that ends up being the case, that's going to be really good for Michael Thomas's fantasy value. Um, and I really don't think he should be a third round pick either. But I don't like Michael Thomas, so I'm not gonna pick Michael Thomas because that would not be fun to me. It's probably the right pick, but I'm not gonna do it. So I'm going to take again. There's you got J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a good value in the third round, um, and running back really gets murky after him for me personally. Like whenever you look at this, like you've got J.K. Dobbins here, and then you've got Miles Sanders, who look, he was one of my picks on our bus show. You've got Josh Jacobs, who he was on the cusp of being up one for me, but I think he'll have an okay season. And then then you really have to go. Then you got Kareem Hunt. I'm not going to stack him and Nick Chubb. This early is just not an investment I'm willing to make. Miles Gaskin, things like that. There's guys that I just really don't feel great about. So while there are some receivers here that I really love, like Keenan Allen and Terry McLaurin and Allen Robinson, I do think that with a team that's going to run the ball as much as they plan to with Baltimore, even though I do love Gus Edwards as a late round value, I still think this is a value here for Dobbins in the middle of the third round with how much they're going to run.
Yeah. And of course, Team 10 just is going to annihilate the targets. They're not going to have
Goodness gracious.
this. Look, if you're doing zero running back as a strategy, that's about as good as a draft as you could start at.
Yeah. So after I took Dobbins at the 306, you had Chris Carson, Allen Robinson, Josh Jacobs, and Keenan Allen come off the board before your next pick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic value there. So looking through here at, I've got, excuse my alert there. I've got my two running backs, set. I think I'm pretty good to get a flex running back at a later position, possibly start targeting those higher end bench guys that I'm high on. But now is when I start looking at wide receivers. Tight end, once the big three are gone, I'm fading that till later rounds. Obviously with quarterback, I'm fading that till later rounds, trying to get a value here. And I'm going through some of the names. Obviously, like you said, Michael Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Julio, Godwin, all these guys are still there. But there's one guy, and like you said, it's hard for me to pass on Michael Thomas here.
Yeah.
I think, the injury history the last few years is kind of concerning, but at the same time, if Jameis is announced as the starter, that's a pill that I could probably swallow a little bit more. Terry McLaurin, I love the player Terry McLaurin. And I think he is going to be a really good fantasy player, but I think there's some potential in there as far as with Fitzpatrick, where you're going to have some weeks where McLaurin just goes absolutely like crazy. And then you're going to have some dud weeks in there as well. So I'm looking at my wide receiver one. I want consistent. I want high upside. I want a team that I know is efficient in the red zone. He's going to have scoring opportunities, and he doesn't have to do it all by himself. And if you listen to my other shows, you can kind of see, or not my other shows, but our other shows, you can kind of see where I'm going with this: efficiency, targets, red zone efficiency, really good quarterback play, and really high upside for, I think, is what is going to be a prove it year for him as well. I'm taking Julio Jones.
All of that lead up, man, and it seemed like Michael Thomas was going to be the pick, and then you hit us with the Julio take. I'm a Julio stan until I die, so I love it.
Julio Jones, I think when healthy, that's been the issue. Obviously, the last few years. Now, I mean, you can point to the games played. Everybody uses that argument, like, well, he played in 14 games. Yeah, but was he healthy for 14 games? Not really. He's had some injury, the nagging hamstring issues, probably the last 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Last year, it really hampered him to where he, barely played. But when healthy, Julio Jones is probably a top 2 to 3 talent, like wide receiver in the league with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. If
Yeah.
he stays healthy with the efficiency of Ryan Tannehill and the way they played, teams have to play, AJ Brown and Derrick Henry, I'm anticipating a really good year for him. So the fact that I'm able to get him in the third and now come around to some great advice from Andrew here, another guy that I'm really high on, and it's one of his breakout candidates of the year that I'm really excited on.
Oh no.
That's right, I'm doing it. I'm going to
Oh
stack Julio
no.
Jones with CD Lamb.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, did you think he was going to fall to you?
That was who I was hoping. That was my fourth
Yeah.
round target. That's who I
Yeah,
wanted.
that's
Yeah.
now you have Evans and Godwin. I think Brady's in for another good year, but both those guys, um, obviously it's kind of feast or famine with either one of them. One of them eats and the other one just kind of is a decoy. There's not really week to week consistency there. When Dak Prescott played, as Andrews touched on in our other shows, CD Lamb never had a finish below a wide receiver one. So I think I'm getting the upside of Julio Jones as a wide receiver one, pairing that with the floor of CD Lamb with Dak Prescott as another wide receiver one, going with the Cam Akers and Antonio Gibson stack here. And basically the only thing I'm hoping for with my team is health. Because all these
Right.
guys at some point have, except CD Lamb, I don't think he's had any injury history yet, but Cam Akers kind of, had some bang up last year.
Mhm.
Antonio Gibson's got the toe question mark, even though he said yesterday, he officially said he's 100% healed from that, but there might be still some lingering side effects. And Julio Jones, obviously, with the injury history there. So, but I'm really, really excited I was able to stack those four guys together.
That's heartbreaking, man. That's exactly what I was wanting to get in the fourth round. So I guess we should mention the Michael Thomas slide finally ended at the back of the third round, right after you took Julio with the 311. Michael Thomas went off at the 312, and then Miles Sanders. You broke my heart with CeeDee Lamb, and then Terry McLaurin, Kyler Murray, and then the 1A and 1B in Tampa, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went off back to back right before my picks. And so while that is heartbreaking, that just opened the door for me to pull out my homer card and grab somebody who you highlighted in a recent podcast. So I'm going to take a page out of your book here, grab a guy that you've been talking about, and take Robert Woods, he might be my favorite fantasy wide receiver two that you can possibly roster. It just you know what you're going to get from this guy. And I think there's a level of upside there that hasn't been there with Goff. Like he's always been safe, but now you've got this level of upside that hasn't been there with Matt Stafford in the fold, and with how good of a receiver Woods is overall. I think that he's going to get a ton of targets. I think Stafford is going to love throwing to this guy, and so that to secure him as my wide receiver two. I would have rather had CeeDee Lamb as my wide receiver too, but Woods is a fine consolation prize. And the other guy I was considering was actually CeeDee Lamb's teammate in Amari Cooper too, because I do think that offense will have two very productive wide receivers in it as long as Dak is healthy. I think that Amari and CeeDee Lamb will both be, top 20 type of guys, assuming health for everybody across the board. So that was the other guy I was considering along with Woods. But after I took Woods, you had Josh Allen come off the board. So now, 3 quarterbacks at this point, and then DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, Lamar Jackson close out the 4th round, and then you had Kenny G at his new home there with the Giants, Myles Gaskin, Kyle Pitts.
I was waiting on that one to get it around. That's whenever I saw that pop up, that's why I made the noise. I was like, oh.
Yeah, feels bad. Dak Prescott and Adam Thielen, who I would not have been touching personally anyway. I'm kind of glad he went off before my pick because he was another one of my bust picks. So that leaves you still have one tight end that I do like, or 2 tight ends really that I do like, in Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. I'm going to play the gamble here. I'm not going to take either one of them. I'm going to play the gamble and see if one of them falls to me. Because if one of those two fell to me in the 6th round, I would be happy taking them there. I don't think it's going to happen. Just to, for transparency. But looking down the list, if you look at some of the just going off of the sleeper ADP here, if you're looking at the running back position, Travis Etienne, it's tough for me not to take him here as much as I love him in dynasty leagues. But as far as redraft goes, James Robinson isn't going away. And I think that Etienne could resemble a lot of the rookie running backs from last year, where he gets off to a little bit more of a slow start. And really starts to come on toward the end of the year. And so I think if it does play out that way, Travis Etienne will be one of my favorite trade targets in the middle of the year, to kind of capitalize on that value that'll probably drop. Like I don't think there's going to be teams drafting him here in this range, and then I don't think they're going to be happy about how it plays out as things get down the road. And then you've got Chase Edmonds, who I don't think he steps in personally and fills the Kenyon Drake role. I think, with James Conner coming in, I think he'll have a similar role to what Drake had last year, and Chase Edmonds will probably keep something similar to what he had last year already. I don't like him here in the 5th round. Melvin Gordon, no thank you. Mike Davis, I think I like Mike Davis, but I don't think I have to take him here to be able to get him. Now, granted, I know that you have 2 picks between my next pick, so the chances
it's
of
probably
him
not making
making
it back around.
right, yeah, but if I'm not drafting in a league with you, I think that there's a decent chance that you can get him in the 6th round. Now, I like Mike Davis, so if you want to take him here, I don't have a problem with that. But just me personally, there are some receivers that I like more, and I'm going right back into the Landon well for my very next pick. And this one was very easy whenever I still saw him on the board. Whenever you're telling me that I can grab a guy that's probably going to average damn near 10 targets a game and I can throw him in my flex, I'm all over that. So give me Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know the worries with Big Ben and things like that, but as far as fantasy goes, the guy's going to get the volume. And you can play the drop card all you want to with me if you want to try that. But before you do that, go look at some of the other players that were toward the top of the list in drops, and some of those guys are already off the board. So if you're going to do that to Deontay, you got to do it. You got to keep that same energy with some of these other top wide receivers, and I'm getting Deontay here in the 5th round. So after Deontay Johnson went the aforementioned Travis Etienne and Chase Edmonds, and then Mark Andrews and Tyler Lockett, which brings Landon on the clock here in the back of the 6th round.
Yeah, and just looking through here, like Drew was saying, the running back well is disappearing very, very quickly. As far as backups, as far as people to target, there's not a lot of them. And like he said earlier, he touched on Mike Davis. Any chance that I can get a possible starting running back who finished as a running back 1 last year, we're all the way in basically the 6th round at this point. It's hard for me to pass on, and I don't know if he'll make it all the way back to me with the running back scarcity. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock in my guy, Mike Davis, valuable flex spot for me as well. And then I'm looking at this point, you could look to fill out tight end possibly, but there's so many good wide receivers still available here, and a guy that I think is possibly in for a really good season. I think he's being underdrafted because of the history and obviously, with the injury history and all that, which at this point, like I said, with Julio, with Antonio Gibson, with, some of the other guys that I've taken, I'm kind of banking on health. And he's a guy that I think, if healthy, is still one of the most talented wide receivers in the league. And I've already filled both my wide receivers spots. I've already filled both my running back spots. I filled my flex spot with Mike Davis. This is a very luxury pick, but because I usually do decide if I miss out on one of those top quarterbacks, or really I don't look to draft quarterback early, but if I miss out on one of those top tight ends, I fade quarterback, I fade tight end. I just try to stack wide receiver and running back with high upside guys on my bench. So I'm going to be taking Odell Beckham out of Cleveland. He's still one of the most talented receivers in the league when healthy. And the fact that If he's not, he can show on my bench. We'll see. But when healthy, I think he's a really good option.
Right, right. I like that a lot. Um, yeah, I'm still a big OBJ fan as well, and I don't. Now I know that it's hard to argue the whole like Baker's better with OBJ off the field argument because by the numbers he has been for the most part, but I think that's just a lot of him being like Odell gets hurt and then the season progresses. And as the season progresses, I don't think he gets better because Odell isn't on the field. I think he gets better because he's getting more comfortable with the offense that he's playing in. Because something to keep in mind with Baker is damn near every year he's running a new offense because there's been so much turnover at the head coach position and at the coordinator position since he's been drafted by Cleveland. And that's not the case this year. You've got Kevin Stefanski, who I mean, what was he like? Wasn't he the coach of the year last year or some shit? Um, he's back in the fold. Baker finally gets some continuity at there, and I'm not going to buy that somebody's going to be better whenever one of the best players at that position since he's been drafted isn't on the field. I'm not buying that. Now I don't think he's the Odell Beckham that you got in New York by any means, and there's going to be lower volume and things like that there. But in the sixth round, with the talent that guy possesses and the upside that he can give you on a week to week basis, yeah, I love Odell in the sixth. So you had after Odell, you had Herbert, Cooper Kupp, Russell Wilson, and then Raheem Mostert, who is a running back that I do like in this range, and I was kind of hoping to fall to me, honestly. There's plenty of injury concerns there, and they did invest a third-round pick in a rookie running back who is another good value. But I do think Mostert goes into the season as the starter on a team that is very successful in running the ball. So I do like him in the sixth round, but he didn't fall to me. So looking at some of the people that are available here, if you want to look at running back, you've got Melvin Gordon, James Robinson, Javonte Williams, Ronald Jones, David Johnson, Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette, Kenyon Drake, some of the guys at the top of the list there. Then receiver, you have the two Cincinnati receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You've got Chase Claypool, Cortland Sutton, DJ Chark, Juju. And there are a couple other guys that I like a little bit later too, and Robbie Anderson and Devontae Smith. And looking at tight end, the two guys that I would hope would fall to me went like 4 picks apart from each other with Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. So those guys are the cutoff for me to now I'm fully committed to waiting for tight end. I'm not interested in any of these kind of middle of the road guys and reaching for one in the sixth round. And then looking at quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, Tom Brady, Stafford, Burrow, Tannehill, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan. There's plenty of guys that I like there, none that I'm investing a sixth round pick in. So really it's wide receiver or it's running back for me. And I'm going to take a guy that I understand is a rookie, but I'm fully bought in, man. I'm all about the hype. I think he's the one-on-one in Dynasty, and I think he's well worth a sixth round pick in redraft and Jamar Chase. If you have T. Higgins higher, I wouldn't really fight you too much about it. I think those two guys are a tandem that we're going to be talking about as one of the best wide receiver duos in the league within like the next 2 to 3 years. I love T. Higgins a lot too, so I don't have any problem with that. But I'm going to take a shot on the upside in the sixth round with Jamar Chase. So after I take Chase in the sixth, it went James Robinson, Javonte Williams, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, Melvin Gordon, DJ Chark, Ronald Jones, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, and Noah Fant before it comes back around to me. Now here, this was a guy I was considered taking in the sixth. I'm glad I waited and played the game and let him fall to me in the seventh. I think he's somebody that's being very dismissed because his team is pretty much the laughing stock of the league right now. But in redraft formats, I do still think that David Johnson has a lot of value as the starting running back for the Houston Texans. I know the Houston Texans are gross, but what he brings it just from the passing game alone, on top of the amount of carries I think he's going to get. They've talked about Mark Ingram as a possible cut candidate. Philip Lindsay is still there, and I do think Philip Lindsay will get work. Philip Lindsay is a good running back, but I expect David Johnson to be the running back one of that offense, and to be able to get that in the 7th round and throw him on my bench is an easy decision for me there.
Yeah, so now it's finally getting back to me, and just looking through here, you see a lot of the guys here. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is still there. That's a big question mark right now. And then you have guys like Devontae Smith, who's a rookie, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Hurts, who's kind of an unknown, Will Fuller, who can never stay healthy, Curtis Samuel's kind of an unknown. You're getting into a lot of these unknown guys. And like I did with the first pick of the last round, I did with 5'11 and 6'2, how I went 5'11. I'm looking for guys that can be running back ones for their squad this late, similar to what Drew did. Damian Harris went. That's a guy that I was kind of targeting here in the late 7th. And Leonard Fournette, I'm not a huge fan of Fournette. I don't know if he'll get a big workload, but we'll see. But like I said, I practice what I preach. And a guy that was in one of my breakout candidates, possible sleeper candidate, that I don't think is going to be available next time I come back around. He will be available on 8-2, but I just want to go ahead and lock this position up for me. I'm taking Zach Moss with the Buffalo Bills, which now leaves me once again with, I've got 3 running backs. I've got 3 wide receivers. That's what I was targeting. I've got my flex position. So the only thing I'm lacking is tight end, quarterback, and kicker. I can continue to build my depth with some of these question mark, high impact guys. But, whenever you're looking through here, there's still just a lot of question marks. So I want to continue to build my wide receiver room, obviously, because I've taken a chance on some of these injury prone guys. There is a good chance that at least one of them will miss some time. So I want to continue to build up that position. I have Devontae Smith here, Curtis Samuel, Will Fuller. Obviously, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, there's question marks there. Brandon Cooks, a lot of question marks there. Jarvis Landry, I already have as well. So I'm going to bank right now on one of Andrew's guys here that I've really kind of targeted later on in these drafts as well. Could be a very high upside type of player with Trevor Lawrence coming down there in Jacksonville. And depending on what happens with Urban Meyer, I'm going to take Laviska Shenault. So yeah, these are just high upside players that you can target late that could possibly pay off, especially if there's some injuries to my wide receiver core and I need to plug and play him, depending on how that works out.
That's twice that you've sniped me now, just for the record.
This always happens when we play in leagues together.
Yeah, this is not just a mock draft thing. This is also something that happens in
every year
in our regular leagues as well. Yeah. All right. All right. Let's see. Hey, would you mind reading off who came off the board real quick for after your pick there?
Yeah, sure. So after Zach Moss went, obviously Aaron Rodgers goes and Jerry Jeudy goes. Both Jerry Jeudy was a guy that I was hoping was going to be there. He went right before, and honestly, I could have taken Jeudy and had him and hoped Moss fell, but at this point, I would rather have the running back because of position scarcity, and I'm happy with Shenault as well. So after that, Devontae Smith gets off the board there. Tyler Boyd goes and Curtis Samuel goes, kind of what we talked about, some guys with question marks. And then Kenyon Drake goes, running back from Las Vegas, who's going to be Josh Jacobs' backup. All of these options are just, basically they're bench type of players that if they have to and if they stay healthy, you can plug and play matchup wise. Devontae Smith's a guy that I really debated on taking or not, but with Jalen Hurts there, I just don't know how well he throws the ball as opposed to running. He was very inaccurate last year. They've got a new offense. There's a lot of question marks. And at that point, I would have rather taken Shenault over Devontae Smith at that point. Now, if Jalen Hurts ends up hitting, that could be a very foolish decision down the road. But I just feel safer. Like I said, with the injury risk that I took earlier with Julio, with Odell, I wanted a safer option. And Chenault, he has had injury history as well. Let's not forget that. So, but at the same time, I think the quarterback play of Trevor Lawrence is probably a more known quantity than the quarterback play of Jalen Hurts, which is why I went there. But yeah, I was really hoping Judy fell, but that didn't happen. And then like I said, Boyd, Samuel, Drake, and then that ends up with Drew's turn here.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the same thing here with Dallas Goedert here available for my pick because I do like Goddard the player, and I do think by the time the season rolls around, Zach Ertz is not going to be on that team. So I do think he will be a popular target for Jalen Hurts, but I don't know how great I feel about that. Now, one other thing that is tempting is the guy we're talking about all of his pass catchers, but Jalen Hurts is also on the board here. And we're kind of getting to that range of where I start to get comfortable with looking at quarterbacks and with the rushing upside that Jalen Hurts brings, regardless of how, like his accuracy issues are well documented. But even knowing that, once he took over that starting quarterback job at the back end of the year, he was a top 5, top 8 type of quarterback on a week-to-week basis because of that rushing floor that he has. So that's tempting. But the issue is there are other quarterbacks still on the board later on that I'm just as comfortable with that I think come with less risk, that might not necessarily have the upside. Now, looking at the running back position, there are a couple guys that I like here, but some that I think will fall to me later on. But Trey Sermon, James Conner, AJ Dillon, Gus Edwards, all intriguing options. I'm kind of out on Michael Carter, to be honest. I know he's kind of been a popular sleeper type of pick in this range, but I'm not as big on Michael Carter personally. And then looking at some of the receivers on the board, you've got Will Fuller, you've got Brandon Cooks, Jarvis Landry, Jalen Waddle, Marquise Brown, Corey Davis are some of the guys just based off ADP that are at the top. And then, I mentioned a tight end, you got Dallas Goedert, and then Logan Thomas, Mike Gesicki, Robert Tonyan, Irv Smith, some guys way down the board. So, man, this is tough. I want to grab Jalen Hurts. There's a couple receivers I like, but honestly, there's a couple receivers that I think will make it back to me next round. See, this is
This
like
this is like
this is the part where it really gets tough, man, because there's a bunch of guys that I like, and it gets a little bit more difficult to play the ADP game whenever you get down this range because stuff gets a little bit more unpredictable because there's a bunch of different positions that I like here. Man, it's gonna be a reach doing this, and I'm well aware of it. But this is a guy I want to make sure that I have on my teams this year. And in the 8th round, I'm okay reaching to do so. He was a sleeper on my list, on a previous podcast, but Mike Williams with the Los Angeles Chargers is who I'm going to take here with the upside that if Justin Herbert continues to progress and if Mike Williams can stay healthy and stop falling so damn hard every time he catches the ball, he's somebody that I think comes with double-digit touchdown upside, and being able to get that in the 8th round is something that I'm all about, especially whenever you look at some of the guys that go after him, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Jarvis Landry. I think Will Fuller, the receiver, is probably a safer bet than Mike Williams as a talent, but I don't really know how I feel about that passing offense compared to the Chargers offense. So you're talking about the one for the, well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you feel about Devontae Parker, but possibly the number 1 for the Dolphins or the number 2 for the Chargers. But after Landry went Goddard, James Conner, Michael Carter, Jalen Hurts, Trey Sermon, Logan Thomas, and Joe Burrow. Now, looking back at this, I'm wishing I would have taken one of the running backs that I like there and let Mike Williams fall to me, because I thought one of them, there were two guys that I liked, and I thought possibly one of them would fall to me in James Conner or Trey Sermon. Um, Both of those guys went off a couple picks before me. Now there are still running backs that I like here. AJ Dillon, I could lock up the Baltimore backfield and grab Gus Edwards, which is something that if I'm grabbing Dobbins, that's something that I would consider doing. I don't think investing a ninth round pick is awful to do for Gus Edwards. If you do invest in J.K. Dobbins, because if Dobbins goes down, I think Edwards steps in as the workhorse and doesn't really miss a beat. We've talked about him at length already. But that's painful. And then at tight end, you got Mike Gesicki, Robert Tonyan, Irv Smith, Tyler Higbee. It's a lot of guys to where I'm still committed to just sitting and waiting at this point. But what I'm going to go with here, and I think I'm going to stop the slide at the quarterback position. For me personally, here in the 9th round, I'm going to go ahead and take a guy that I think is in for yet another huge season, the GOAT himself, Mr. Tom Brady. I'm going to go ahead and grab him here in the 9th round.
Wow. No, no homer picks.
No, I did consider it, man, but I do think that Brady has the better fantasy season. Like I love Stafford. I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but I think Brady has more top 5 type of upside compared to that. So I think Stafford was probably the obvious pick there for me. Like that was probably what people
That's
would
what I was.
guess would happen. Yeah, but no,
So
I'm going to go with Brady there. And then after Brady went Gesicki, Jalen Waddle, and then Matt Stafford himself, and then right before your pick went Nyheim Hines.
yeah, and what some of these teams are doing, it might not be indicative of what actually happens in your draft. Like the guy that has Kyler Murray in the 4th round, I doubt he's picking another quarterback, in the 9th, or
Right.
the guy that has Josh Allen, especially in one quarterback leagues, which is what this is. Generally, you're only rostering that one guy.
Which I mean, like your home leagues, the more casual leagues, you will see that happen a little bit more. But if it's if it's like a competitive redraft league, yeah, you're not the guys drafting Kyler and Josh Allen. They're not grabbing another quarterback in the 9th round. You're
But
exactly right.
luckily, this is what I was hoping, because it's a guy I debated in the last round I picked Chenault. Um, I was hoping there would be some quarterbacks, go off the round, and this guy would end up being there for me. This is generally around the 8th or 9th round is when I kind of target my quarterback. But with Chenault there, I was hoping I could grab Chenault. This guy would fall to me. I would love to stack him with Julio Jones.
I knew this was gonna be the
Um,
pick.
yeah. It just makes too much sense with the way the board fell, with the way the roster is, and the way, the quarterbacks after him. You're looking at Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield, Fields, Wentz, those type of guys. And I think this guy is going severely underdrafted
Yeah,
um, in these leagues. And the fact that I already have one of his receivers as my top option, to create that stack at the quarterback wide receiver position, it just makes too much sense for me. So this was my dream scenario with the board falling the way it did. I'm going to go ahead, take Ryan Tannehill, pair him. And so now I've got, my 4 wide receivers, my 3 running backs, my quarterback. Um, and Drew's going to hate me once again. Um, because I want to continue to build that running back room on my bench. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, and it did happen. Here in the 10th round, this is a guy that I was targeting. AJ Dillon could also be a very, very good value there as well,
yeah,
especially if something happens with Aaron Jones. But I think Aaron Jones just has a stranglehold on that workload. Whereas I think with Gus Edwards, kind of how Drew touched on whenever with his sleeper pick, I think he's got a lot more path to work with that team, with the way they run the ball, as opposed to AJ Dillon with the Packers. So yeah, and don't look at projected points on some of
no,
these sites. That's never indicative of what actually, the value of some of these guys are, because they don't take into, like right now, I believe Trevor Lawrence was supposed to outscore Ryan Tannehill based on their projected points. I don't know if anybody sees that happening.
No,
I mean, anything's possible, but I would rather have Ryan Tannehill than Trevor Lawrence going into the season for fantasy football. So
I
I'm going to
agree.
be taking Gus Edwards. That gives me my 4 running backs, my 4 receivers, and my quarterback position, and my flex position locked up. So I'm feeling very good about my bench. I'm feeling very good about my starters, and now I can kind of start targeting some of these late round tight ends, possible upside wide receivers. Now that my running back room is kind of filled, and we can just kind of see where the board falls from there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, honestly, if I didn't already have J.K. Dobbins, I would have taken Gus Edwards in the ninth round. But I'm not a huge handcuff fan, to be honest with you. I mean, injuries are going to are going to happen, and it's tough to predict. And as you get closer to the fantasy playoffs in the regular season, I do prefer to, assuming your handcuff is out there. Now, guys like Gus Edwards, AJ Dillon, if you don't draft them, there's a decent chance they might not be available at that point. But I do like to, drop a couple of my bottom bench spots for handcuffs, getting closer to the fantasy playoffs. But I don't really like drafting them. So with me already having Dobbins, that was the main reason I chose to pass on Gus Edwards. But I obviously I love the pick. But
Yeah, and see
um,
now, and also to kind of piggyback off of that point as well. So, like for me, from my perspective, is whenever I have a chance to steal a handcuff from a
mm,
guy, like right now, I'm taking Gus Edwards. Drew has, Dobbins. If something was to happen to Dobbins, I just got a locked and loaded RB1 in the 10th round on a weekly basis.
right,
And that's kind of what you're targeting there with your late round selections at the running back position. Same thing with AJ Dillon. Um, if something happens with Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon's probably going to be. I don't know if he has the upside as Gus Edwards does, because we've seen just Gus Edwards do it for 2-3 years now. Whenever
right.
he has the opportunity, just massive production. But AJ Dillon, anytime one of these starters goes down and you have a chance to get that guy, that could be a possible league winning scenario for you.
Right. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. So with my 10th round pick here, this is such an easy pick for me. I still can't I can't figure out why this guy's going this late. Um, I'm gonna make a quarterback wide receiver stack here as well. I just didn't realize I was going to be doing it whenever I took Tom Brady. But with my 10th round pick, I'm going to be taking future first ballot Hall of Famer Antonio Brown here in the 10th round, who I getting picked up halfway through the year by the Buccaneers last year, immediately stepping on the field and looking like, from a talent standpoint, he really didn't miss a beat. Now, granted, I get that there are plenty of mouths to feed out there in Tampa with Godwin and Mike Evans and AB and the tight end position with Gronk as well. Um, even factoring all those things in, I can't for the life of me figure out why Antonio Brown is going in the 10th round. He's an absolute steal at that price point, and he's somebody that I'm looking at in the ninth round. If the quarterback that I like isn't there, but after Antonio Brown, you've got Michael Gallup, Devontae Parker, Irv Smith, Latavius Murray, Michael Pittman, Gronk, Higbee, Henderson, Marvin Jones, and Hunter Henry. Now, kind of unfortunate circumstances here because I was hoping to grab a tight end here in the 11th round, and there was a run of 4 tight ends between my last pick and this pick, and the tight ends that I was targeting were Irv Smith and Tyler Higbee. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Now there are still tight ends that I like a little bit later that I don't have to grab right now. I'm now back in the camp of I'm going to sit and wait. So looking at the running back position, you've got Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard, Jamal Williams, Phillip Lindsay, Tariq Cohen. Now Pollard is the clear backup to Zeke. Jamal Williams is the clear backup to DeAndre Swift. Phillip Lindsay, I believe, is the clear backup to David Johnson. Some might disagree with that, but that is how I view that there. And then at receiver, you've got Rashad Bateman, Darnell Mooney, Henry Ruggs, Nelson Aguilar, T.Y. Hilton, Elijah Moore. I am very high on Bateman from a dynasty standpoint. Redraft, I'm fine taking a shot on him as well. I do think that there is a real chance that he comes in and is the number one targeted receiver on that team. I believe in the talent. I believe in Lamar's work ethic. I know he hasn't been the greatest passer in the world, but I do think that, that's something he's going to continue to improve on. But in the 11th round here for me, I'm going to take a running back who I believe at least has a shot to be the lead back in his backfield. And it is the counterpart to a guy you took earlier and somebody that you have pegged as a sleeper pick, and that is Devin Singletary with the Buffalo Bills. Now, I'm not a huge Singletary fan, to be honest with you. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's all that great either. But it's going to be him or Zach Moss. And in the 11th round, with an offense, we're talking about a top 5 offense in the league, and Singletary does have at least a shot at being the lead back in that offense. That's something in the 11th round I'm willing to take a shot on at this point, since the tight ends that I wanted came off the board right before my pick. So after I took Singletary, a couple of the running backs that I mentioned, Tony Pollard, Jamal Williams, come off the board, Henry Ruggs, and then another quarterback in Mr. Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Okay. So, which leads me into this little spiel right here, and this is a lesson for Drew right here, is to know your opponents, know what your other teams need, know who who some of their guys are. Like, obviously, with our podcast, we kind of think the same a lot. And we've just played in fantasy football leagues together for so long now that we just know how each other works. But with that run at tight end, that leaves the position very bare.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the only position I have not secured, which probably means if we're high on the same type of guys and I have a need at that position, that's probably where I'm going. So if Drew wanted these guys that he was probably going to target, there's a good chance they're not making it back to him.
Let's see.
On this, because right now I'm looking at tight ends. Like I said, the only position I have not taken. I I don't like the Jonnu Smith thing with the Hunter Henry. I don't think the opportunity's there. Evan Ingram can't stay healthy. I don't like Austin Hooper for fantasy this year. I just think there's too many mouths to feed in that offense. Zach Ertz is always a liability. Now Jared Cook is somebody that I would kind of target here if I knew for sure he was going to be the unquestioned starter. But I'm taking a guy that Drew was really high on in his Pick'em series for sleepers at tight end. This is where I want to start taking these shots on these guys that could be possible league-winning type of players. So right now, I'm going to be taking Adam Troutman out of the Saints. And then I'm going to go ahead and pair that with another one of my guys here, and that is Anthony Ferkser out of Tennessee. And I'm hoping those guys, one of those two guys hits. And that's where I'm targeting my tight ends late. I'm targeting guys that have the high upside. There's some question marks there. We haven't seen the production from them before. We don't know if Troutman's good. We don't know if Ferkser's good. Advanced metrics say they are, but we'll have to wait and see. So I'm taking both these guys back to back, hoping one of them hits, fills that tight end position for me.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. So Troutman was one of the guys I had my eye on, as you know. The only reason I didn't grab a tight end there was because there were multiple guys that I was still comfortable with in that range on guys to take a shot on. Now Troutman was one of those. Jared Cook is another. Cole Kmet is another one there. And then I even I like Gerald Everett as well, the tight end in Seattle. Now, granted, that's part of that is from watching him with the Rams and just seeing the athletic ability. It's off the charts, man. And they did bring him in on a 1 year, I believe it's a 1 year deal there in Seattle. Now, granted, he'll be the third target there behind Metcalf and Lockett, but I do like the upside with him there. But yeah, there were still a couple guys that I was comfortable with. Troutman would have been the guy that I would have taken a shot on if he would have fell to me. He did not. So looking at the other positions here at running back, you've got Tariq Cohen, Alexander Madison, J.D. McKissick, Kenneth Gainwell, Tevin Coleman, Rashad Penny, Chuba Hubbard, Marlon Mack. Just a whole lot of yuck going on at the running back position.
Now, you love Rashad Penny, bro.
Yeah. Hey, look, don't be surprised if you see him on my roster here at the back end. I do love Rashad Penny. Um, but in terms of workload, like all trolling aside, Chris Carson is the clear workhorse out there. Um, I do think Tevin Coleman is interesting to take a shot on as well, honestly, because even despite all of the Michael Carter hype, I think that there is a real possibility that week one, snap number one, Tevin Coleman is the running back out there on the field for the New York Jets. Robert Saleh, former defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, where Tevin Coleman just spent the last few years. That was one of the first signings that the Jets made this offseason during free agency, was to bring Tevin Coleman in at the running back position. Now, can he stay healthy longer than the first snap of the first game? Probably not. But you're in the 12th round. As somebody to take a shot on, you could do a lot worse. And then staying on that same team, Elijah Moore has been the product of so much camp hype and things like that. And granted, I think is well deserved, because I do think he's a really great player, and it does not surprise me to hear that he's out there doing so well. But I'm not going to play around with other positions at this point. I am going to go ahead and lock in tight end, and a guy that I grabbed in our 12-team dynasty league off the waiver late last year. Honestly, I didn't expect Jimmy Graham to still be on the roster. I really thought that he would be gone by now, and it still is a possibility that he could be cut before the season starts. But a tight end that I think will be a very good friend of Justin Fields this year once he does take over that job, just as a safety net, and somebody that I do think he is a talented tight end, and Cole Kmet, the tight end, went to Chicago. Um, he was the other guy outside of Troutman that I was comfortable with. So I would have preferred Troutman. I am higher on him this year, but with you grabbing him and me not being able to do so, I will settle for Cole Kmet there. So, the reason I said I'm not going to play around with other positions is this is a very standard league where we do have defense and kicker, which should always be your last two picks. And I only have two picks remaining here. So that is the reason why, I'm not going to wait around a tight end anymore and pick a defense first or pick a kicker first, so I'll just grab the tight end that I like there. And now I'm going to grab my favorite defense, which is my favorite team. This is nice and easy. I'm going to let Aaron Donald take me to the promised land, and I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going to dissect the defense pick here too much, but yeah,
Yeah.
easy homer pick.
Yeah. And like you said, this is just kind of where I am. I have two more picks left. And I need a tight end, or not a tight end. I need a kicker and a defense. I'm not gonna fool around. And kicker, we'll see what happens, but I'm just gonna take a kicker here. Um, and obviously, I think Buffalo is probably going to score a lot of points. So that's kind of what you're looking for with a kicker. You're basically just looking for good offenses,
Right.
teams that are going to score a lot of points. And then with defenses, I'm going to take my most improved defense of the season, and a team that I think is going to be right up there. Now, granted, they do have a really tough week one matchup, which is something you need to look at if you're
Yep.
drafting defense. A lot of the times, I'm going to be streaming defenses. If I'm in a league, just a casual league like this, I'll stream matchups. But I do want to make sure that these guys are on my roster. And well, I say that, and now that I'm looking, I thought they had went before this. Another defense that I'm really, really high on this year has PFF has them as the best upgraded secondary in the league. And let's see here, all positions, if we're looking where they have them ranked, they have wow, actually they have the Colts defense as the best one left, which is
Hey,
surprising.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be that much of a homer, because I do actually like this defense better. And that's gonna be the Broncos defense. I think the
Yeah.
Broncos, that's the strength of their team. Obviously, Vic Fangio, great defensive coordinator, and that secondary is just disgusting. Von Miller's back. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I love defense. That's my favorite part of football, actually. So I could actually make an hour long podcast just about talking defenses, but yeah, and that ends my draft.
Yeah, so my last pick here, I'm not going to spend any time talking about who I'm picking because kickers don't matter. The only time I'm going to be spending talking about this is if you play in a league with kickers, tell your commissioner to get the kickers out of the league. There is no strategy to it. There is no point to it. It is all random. You can completely lose a matchup just because an offense can't get in the end zone one week and a kicker kicks 7 field goals and there was no rhyme or reason. It's not even, some people even prefer not to have defenses in their league. And if you want to just load up on flexes, to add to your league, I don't have a problem with that either, but at least defenses, there is some rhyme and reason to it. There's some streaming strategy there, things like that. With kickers, none of that exists. It's dumb. It's pointless. They may be important for the real NFL. They're not needed here in fantasy. So we put them in this mock draft because if you're talking about just like your standard league, they're going to be in it. But we're not here to give you kicker advice. The only advice we're here to give you for kickers is to get them out of your league. But I'll grab the top kicker here to close this thing out and finish off our first
Yeah, and really,
mock draft.
I'll tell you this as well. When it comes to defenses, I I don't even really like playing defenses in fantasy football just because of the way the NFL obviously has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at good defenses giving up. Literally, you can be a top defense and give up 20 points a game.
Right.
Now in fantasy, that's bad. That's not a good thing. So you're looking at even of the best defenses either getting you negative or negligible points in the NFL, unless there's just some crazy streak like New England had a couple years ago, where they were literally putting up like 20 points a game. It was insane. And I was lucky enough to own them in at that time. But that's the only time I've ever had fun defense. If you are going to play defense, the most fun I've ever had in a league is IDP leagues, which is individual defensive players, where you have, defensive linemen, you have linebackers, you have two DB
DBs.
slots, and obviously sacks, tackles, interceptions, fumble returns, they can score touchdowns depending on what happens with that. That's just an absolute blast, and it's something that I've really wanted to do, is starting a dynasty league with a full roster. I've debated it with our 32 team league because that would give it a lot more parity as well, but it's hard to find 32 players that are as insane as me and Andrew are.
Right.
But yeah, now if you're listening to this and you are interested in starting a even just a 12 teamer, I don't want 10 teams just because every roster's loaded in a 10 team league. But at least 12 teams. If you're on here, you're listening to us, you'd be interested in a 12 team dynasty IDP league. Let us know. And it's something that we might do, kind of an amateur experts dynasty league for our listeners, where you get to play fantasy football with Drew and I. And we just continue it all year. And yeah, I love IDP leagues. I would much prefer that over just straight defensive picks.
Yeah, I've only done that once, and I did have a lot of fun with it too. I think, and just like the idea of being a Rams fan, like the idea of getting to have the shot to own Aaron Donald in a dynasty league, it's just something that like it doesn't even cross my
Yeah.
mind, but like it would be a blast to be able to do that,
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like a lot of those guys too. Like if you want Aaron Donald, you're probably going to be looking at second or third round of drafting him that early, because that's how early some of these elite guys go. Like I
Now,
remember
I do remember whenever I did an IDP draft, I faded defensive players until pretty late,
until
and it
everybody
worked
does
out.
late.
Yeah, and it worked out for me. So like I would probably miss out on Aaron Donald, but like if he is truly going that high. But yeah, I think that would be, having an IDP league, I think would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. So if that's something you guys would be interested in, just let us know down in the comments. But that's going to end today's mock draft.
But
Let's go over the
before,
rosters real quick.
yeah. Say before we completely wrap it up, let's go run down the roster. So I was picking from the 106. I had Nick Chubb, Stephon Diggs, J.K. Dobbins, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, Jamar Chase, David Johnson, Mike Williams, go Brady, Antonio Brown, Devin Singletary, Cole Kmet, the Rams, and Matt Prater. And then picking from the 11th spot, you had Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, Julio Jones, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Davis, OBJ, Zach Moss, Laviska Shenault, Ryan Tannehill, Gus Edwards, Adam Troutman, Anthony Firkser, Tyler Bass, and the Denver Broncos defense. So something I learned from this exercise is if I'm not picking in like the top 3 picks, I want to be picking in the very back. I like your team more than I like my team,
Yeah,
to be completely honest with you.
that's something that I always would like. If I'm not picking, really the top four for me. If I'm outside the top four, I would look like I want to be either 11 or 12 in my drafts. But that's just the way I draft. It's conducive to that. Some guys are better at drafting, at 6 or 7 or something like
Yeah, I don't like drafting
that.
in the middle either.
But when you're drafted in the middle, there's a good chance you're going to have to reach on a lot of guys that you like, and that's just the unfortunate thing of it. Whereas if you're closer to one of those turns, you have a chance to get a lot more value from me personally. So yeah, in the comments, obviously I also like my team better, obviously. But Drew
Yeah,
likes my team better as well.
look, it's not common for me to be like, oh, I like somebody else's team more than mine. Normally, whenever you draft a team, you're looking at that team through rose-colored glasses, and you're
Right.
always gonna like that team more. But look, complete transparency, man. Even while we were sitting there doing the draft, watching the draft board fall to you, I was like, man, I don't want to be picking in the middle. Like I like Landon's team a lot more than I like my team. There's
Yeah.
a couple of picks in there that I would change. Like I'm not as high on you as Zach Moss, so I would have taken somebody else there. Thing like there's things that I would have done a little bit differently, but overall, top to bottom, I like your roster better than I do mine.
Yeah, and let us know down in the comments as well if you're watching this or you're listening. Let us know whose team you actually like better whenever you're watching this video. If
Yeah,
you prefer Drew's team to mine, if you prefer my team to his, or if you like one of the computer generated teams as well. If the sleeper computer just absolutely annihilated us in this draft, let us know. Because I'm curious as to some of the guys that went as well, because a team that I actually
team
really
two looks good, man.
yeah, I was gonna well, I do like team two. There's some questions at running back, but I was gonna say one of my favorite teams is is actually that team nine, where you have Taylor, Mixon, and Jacobs with Kyler Murray, Mark Andrews, Cooper Cup. I'm not a huge fan of Juju, but Tyler Boyd, Ruggs could be a value. You got him
I
and
think Corey Davis is a value in the 10th round too.
yeah. So I mean, there's some values at wide receiver, but the quarterback, the running back, and the tight end of that team is top notch.
And we had a team, we had a computer generated team go full zero RB with Team 10. They started out their draft with Tyreek, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett. Holy shit!
Yeah, and that's the
That
thing
it
is whenever you're playing in a standard league like this, you can only start three of those guys any given week. So like,
right.
so I mean, like with McLaurin and Lockett, as great as those guys are, like, are you putting them over any one of those other three?
And then you've
Probably.
got the running backs they ended up with were playoff Lenny and Naeem Hines and AJ Dillon. And now you look at it, it was a very aggressive receiver approach. But like if I'm the manager of Team 10, I'm immediately going and looking at a team that's hurting at the receiver position, and I'm trying to package a couple of guys to go grab a running back. And
Right.
they've got the luxury to do that now. Now it's a huge risk to take because you don't know if anybody's going to accept your trades. Like it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to flip any of those guys. But like if it's me, if I'm managing that team, that would be the approach that I would take. But I thought it was really cool to see a computer team go zero RB essentially and see how that kind of played out too. That was kind of cool. So mock drafting is fun, man. I could close this out and do another one right now and be just
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, just let us know down there what you thought of the teams we drafted, whose team you liked more. But yeah, that's gonna end our show for today. Like I said earlier too, let us know if you're interested in starting that dynasty IDP league with us. That's something that I've always wanted to do. I think it would be fun to get at least 12 of our viewers together and do that. So I will let Drew do the closing like always.
Yeah, so as always, if you've made it this far, first and foremost, thank you for hanging with us for this mock draft. Hopefully this exercise was somewhat helpful for you. If you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, you can find us on Google, Apple, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, we're there. If you want to follow along with us while we do mock drafts and things like that, we do these things on YouTube. You can watch our ugly mugs talk these things out and watch the mock draft itself play out as it happens. So you go over to YouTube, the Amateur Experts Podcast. If you do find this video, make sure that if you like the content that you watch, make sure you like the video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Whenever you subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell that pops up so you can be notified. We only upload like once a week, so we're not blowing your phone up with notifications, but the one notification you get a week will let you know when a new podcast dropped. And then, as Landon already said, be sure to drop down in the comments and let us know, which team you like better, what picks you would have done differently, in that type of thing. And, guys that maybe, as we were talking through things, if we said things you agree, disagree with things like that, let us know. So, but yeah, at beginning and end, of course, the big thing is thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting all the stuff that we mentioned in terms of likes and comments and stuff like that. While we appreciate the engagement and it's something that we can do with you guys, it also goes a long way in helping us out too.
Yeah, and special shout out to John Wayne here for helping
Yeah.
me with this draft as well.
I'm gonna give him the credit for drafting the better team. It was because you had John Wayne behind you and I did. That's why I like your team more.
Yeah, I technically did not draft this team at all. It was all him. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week with another great episode.